Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Relatable Hour with me, Dr. Green. Thank you so very much for joining. We have been having a really good time talking to various leaders in various capacities. And I think it's important to have these discussions because I think it's always good to see different perspectives and different journeys of leaders in different areas because I know that a lot of the viewers, a lot of you guys, are in different spaces. I think it always just helps to get different people, if I'm being honest, because we all have different ways of kind of operating in that world. And I have stumbled upon someone who I think is going to bring some really good jewels to this conversation of leadership and more. And I'm going to leave it to him just to kind of describe everything that he does. But I want to turn it over to today's guest, sorry, Mr. Sorrells.
Nice.
That will tell us, I guess I should say, tell us a little bit about yourself and just what's guiding you to where you are right now.
All right. Well, I am originally I'm from San Diego, California. I graduated high school 1994. Um, did a lot of sports activities, stuff like that, while I was in high school. Unfortunately, there was a couple of instances where I didn't make the grades I was supposed to make, so scholarship type deals were out of the window, and so I had to fall back on something else. So long story short, I had to join the military. Well, I didn't have to, but I decided to join the military, and it took me on a journey. So 26 years, retired Army first sergeant, and then that led me to the VA where I currently work now. It was a very long journey, very interesting journey, to say the least, but wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah, and I think every person that I've met that has, taken that step into, working in the military in some sort, they've always kind of talked about the journey
Mhm.
that they experience and they, kind of um, have for, I guess, for life because of what you experience. And it's always different. And I'm always
Yeah.
just, amazed by, what kind of transpires in your journey. And you mentioned, just kind of how you got into it. But prior to getting into the military, growing up in California, talk to us a little bit about what you originally envisioned yourself kind of doing, and then juxtaposing that to, getting into that world of joining the military.
Well, originally, I saw myself going to college, and doing that as an athlete. Growing up, I was raised by a single mother. Um, my parents divorced when I was very young. My father was in the Navy, but like I said, my father and my mother divorced when I was about 7, so we stayed in California. Loved it there. If you ever get a chance to go to San Diego, please go. I promise you won't be disappointed. But I felt, or I learned that I had a gift with running, and so I started running track. And like I said, I wanted to hopefully use that to go to college, and then ultimately I saw myself doing something, helping people. I wasn't exactly sure how, but I knew I wanted to do something that was going to impact or help others. Um, and then, like I said, things happened, and I had to take a different route, and ended up joining the army.
Mhm.
Um, so initially, when I joined the army, I joined as the title was an automated logistical specialist. It's a fancy word for warehouse supply and other things, but it's primarily logistics. Um, and it as you progress in the military, of course, um, you make rank, you get into different leadership positions, so on and so forth, and so you don't just stay in that aspect of where you came in at. You grow and you move forward. But we'll get into that later. Um, but yeah, just growing up, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to help people in some way, shape, or form. I toyed with the idea of being a lawyer, I toyed with the idea of being a psychologist. Um, but I don't think I thought too far ahead on it. I was just focused on trying to get into school. So that was part of the reason for joining the army as well, was to find another way into college.
Hmm. Yeah. And so when you did finally make the decision to join the army, was it a matter of, hesitancy to joining it at first, or was it more so like, this is my decision, I made it, I'm gonna go with it full force?
Oh no, there was a lot of hesitancy.
Okay.
In my mind, I had this idea that I wanted to be different than my father, so I didn't want to join the military. But I saw it as an opportunity to again get into college, and I wouldn't have to put the stress or burden on my mom to provide the funding for it, or find a way to get the money, make doing extra work, whatever the case may be. Funny story. I was supposed to join the Air Force.
Ah.
Yeah. So after school, after track practice, football practice, wrestling, whatever I was doing at the time, I would go to the recruiting station. It wasn't that far from my high school. And every day I went to see the Air Force recruiter, because I was like, I'm not joining the Army. I want to join the Air Force because the Air Force was prestigious.
Mhm.
They fly jets in the Air Force and
Right.
whatever else. So waited, every time I got there was a little sign on the door with the clock that said we'll return at, X time or whatever. So it was always we'll return at 3 or we'll return at 2 or whatever. So I would try to get there right when I know the person's going to be back. Recruiter never showed up. So the Army recruiter, being Army, was just hanging out, just watching. You come out every once in a while. Hey, you need some water? No, you good? Okay. All right, I'll leave you alone. And I said, I was adamant. No, I'm not joining the army. I'm gonna just sit right here and I'll just wait. And a couple days later, he comes out. Hey, you want some snacks or anything? I think he's gonna be back in a little bit, but I'm not sure. But just keep waiting. He knew. I found out later. He knew he wasn't gonna be there. He knew it.
He was making
Um,
these subtle.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He just, next couple of days he comes out with a brochure, here, well, while you're waiting, just go ahead and read this, just keep you occupied. He should be back shortly. I think he'll be back. He said he'll be back in a couple minutes. And I'm just like, yeah, okay. So slowly but surely the army recruiter wore me down
Yeah.
and ended up going into the office, sitting down with him and going over some stuff, and then made the decision to join the army. And then so I went home and told my mom, say, hey, look, this is what I'm going to do. I'm 18. At that time when I was 18, the statistics were, young black men 18 to 25 are going to either end up dead or in jail. And I didn't want to be either. So
Mhm.
I had to find a way to ensure that I could take care of myself, take care of my family if need be, and not put any burden or pressure on my mom to, because she had my brother also to take care of as well. So I didn't want to add anything to that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, I would love to get a play-by-play of everything, but I know that it can be a very convoluted path once you enter into it and you kind of go through all of the different facets of joining the army. But, I'm taking you, I guess, down a memory lane, so to speak. But talk to me about, some of the hard moments that you had to overcome at that time, and you kind of look back at it and be like, I guess it wasn't that big, but at that time when you were starting out, it was a really big deal.
Um, yeah, there's plenty of those moments.
Right.
There that they extend all the way out through my career. Actually, there's always moments where you think it's going to be difficult, it's hard. You're not sure if you're going to make it. You're not sure if you're making the right decision. And when you come out of it, when you come out the other side, you think to yourself, hey, no, I guess it wasn't that bad. I guess I did it. My first instance of that was basic training. I mean, I didn't know what to expect. The recruiter doesn't tell you this is going to happen on day one, this is going to happen week two, whatever. They just, keep you engaged, and they keep you focused on wanting to get in and go for it. And once they drop you off or put you on that bus or that plane, that's it. So
Hmm.
the the ignorance, I guess, of what happens in basic training was kind of difficult. But I got through it. I found that halfway through, I wouldn't say it's easier than I thought it was going to be, but because I was an athlete, I was a little bit further ahead than some of the other young privates physically, because I could do the push-ups, I could do the running, I could climb the ropes, I could do whatever. It was the mental aspect, learning the different, the ranks, the structure, uh, so on and so forth. That was, a little bit more difficult, but got through it, came out the other side, and boom, now I'm a full-fledged private. Um,
Hmm.
and then of course you go into your job, your MOS training. um, After that, that wasn't, um, I don't want to say it was difficult, but it was just, again, you're learning something new. And the Army teaches you, they try to make it as simple as possible. So um, while it was difficult, it wasn't, I never got the sense that if I fail this, I'm gonna go back home and I'm gonna have to start over. I always had the sense that I'm gonna make it. I'm just gonna have to rely on what my instructors say, and then what my fellow soldiers can help me with as well.
Yeah, yeah. And so you mentioned just in just kind of giving us an overview of that. You mentioned how they kind of give you awareness of like the rank and the structure of how
Mhm.
things kind of operate going from different levels. At that time, when you were kind of learning and absorbing that, is there a certain rank or a certain place that you wanted to be, based on your experience and where you saw yourself going?
Um, Initially, no. I just wanted to learn, and I just wanted to do it and be a part of doing something. But that changed once I got to AIT, Advanced Individual Training. I think they call it something else now, but basically that's where you learn your job, your trade. Um, my first day at AIT, we were standing outside. We excuse me, we were supposed to be in formation, and I don't know how much about the military but being in formation, we had to, we're dressed right, dressed, so we were all in line, our rectangular formation, standing there at what's called parade rest. That's a particular position that we stand at while we're awaiting instructions or receiving instructions. So we were all supposed to be standing outside waiting in formation. My drill instructor comes out, because we have drill instructors in AIT as well, and he he says, "Hey, somebody get in charge of this gaggle." I'm not going to use the words that he used at the time, because I don't know how I'm gonna keep this PG rated. But
We're
he,
all
he
adults. I think everybody's adults, so we
yeah,
can,
yeah.
however
Well,
you want.
he definitely used some colorful language.
Okay.
But he,
Okay.
he he instructed us to get somebody in front of the doggone formation and take charge.
Got it.
And nobody wanted to do it. Everyone was looking around at everybody else for someone to step up and take charge. So I just immediately was like, "Hey, I'm not going to allow for myself or my the personnel of my platoon to get smoked." In which is when the drill sergeants come out and put us all in the push-up position, and just have us doing push-ups for about an hour, or other various exercises. So I got up and got in charge, took charge of the formation. So when I did that, he came back out. The other platoons got in formation as well, and then I saw the senior drill sergeant.
Mhm.
And it's almost like a movie, right? He comes out, he's standing about 6'4", very lean silhouette. He's got his drill sergeant hat, but it's pulled down to where you can only see the bottom of his nose, and then his
Mm.
facial structure or whatever. His boots were shined, so much so that when he, like, the glare from the sunlight hit him, it was, like I said, it was something out of a movie. Like, he comes
Yeah.
out, everybody's just dead silent. The other drill sergeants are acting like privates, like they're scared of him.
Wow.
Um, and instantly, I was like, I want to be that guy.
Yeah.
I want to be him. He was a sergeant first class at the time, uh, but he was the first sergeant. By grade, he was a sergeant first class, or excuse me, by grade he was an E7, and by rank he was a sergeant first class. But by position, he was the first sergeant of the company. So he was the guy that's in charge. He's the guy that everybody answers to on the enlisted side. And I immediately saw him and I was like, I want to be that guy right there. He walked out the door and commanded um, everything with just his presence.
Yeah.
And that stuck with me through my entire career. So from that point, I already knew what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be in the military.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a lot to glean from that one instance. I mean, I'm thinking about, the topic at hand with, the fact that we're talking about, leadership styles and things of that nature, but I'm also gleaning from the fact that, that was your first encounter that made a really big impact on, your trajectory and things that you want to aspire to.
Oh
So,
yeah.
with that position, having that role that he presented, impacted you with, I should say, is that something that propelled you to make next steps to, accomplish, or how did that take place?
Oh yeah, absolutely. From that moment on, just seeing his presence, seeing the way he wore the uniform, we the regulation that we use to that governs how we wear our wear and appearance in the Army is the AR 670-1. That's our manual for that. And he was the living embodiment of it. There was there was there was nothing about his appearance that was different than what was in the manual. And so from that point on, I structured my appearance the same way. I got in the manual and everything I did as far as my uniform, my grooming, my mustache, hands and my fingernails, everything was right there by the book. And that from that step of just my appearance pushed me to do other things in that manner as well. So, if I was locked in tight on my appearance, then I had to be locked in tight on what I did as far as my job, my duties, being a soldier, et cetera, et cetera. And in doing that, that led me to, get different awards, get put into positions that were above my pay grade, so to speak, um, just because I stood out. I was always willing to take charge when no one else would take charge. And when I was taking charge, I was in charge. I wasn't just saying, hey, I'm here holding the position until someone else comes. I'm in the position, I'm in charge. I will take responsibility, but I will also provide direction and guidance as well.
And the leadership that you had even at that time, kind of seems like it stood out. I mean, you talked about how everybody was kind of looking around like, oh, and you just kind of talking about not wanting to be, just being in push-up position and doing all this erroneous stuff. Like you came to the table for everybody to kind of
Yeah.
be the leader at that time. Really speaks to your capabilities in the leadership world. So you mentioned getting all the awards and all the accolades and things of that nature, but I'm interested. Talk to us a little bit about the next levels of leaderships that you took on and the different types of positions that you took from that point on.
So there are there are certain courses that we have to attend in the
Yeah,
military in order
yeah.
to hold on to certain positions or be put in certain positions. But just from being a private all the way to sergeant and above, I found that um, whenever there was an opportunity to um, step forward and be not necessarily be in charge, but take ownership of something, I went ahead and did it just
Mhm.
because I knew it needed to be done. Right? The Army is all about structure. It's all about um, um, organization. It's about many different things, and a lot of times you have some people that will um, they'll just do the basics. They'll do the bare minimum. They'll do whatever is asked of them. Right? They'll do what you tell them to do, but they won't do more.
Right.
Um, and so I started to notice early on in my career that um, there are times where we have downtime in the Army.
Hmm.
Not downtime like we get off or whatever else, but there are times where we have a task to do, we get it done, and then there's that time in between that there's nothing going on.
Hmm.
And sometimes, in order for us to get off of work on time, or just get released to go do whatever we need to do. We have to get certain things done. And so I would step up and say, hey, let's get these things done so we can get out of here early. I don't know about you guys, but I want to go home. I want to
Right.
go to the gym, or I want to go do whatever. So just starting there, I found that later on I got put into a platoon sergeant position when I was just a sergeant E5. Platoon sergeant positions are reserved for sergeant first classes or E7s. So that's two pay grades above where I was at. But my leadership said, hey, you have the drive, you have the motivation, um, take the wheel and run with it. And then unfortunately, like, you can't hold some of those positions until, or make certain rank until you go to certain schools. So we have different leadership schools in the military, especially in the Army. We have uh, basically four leadership schools. We have one before you make sergeant. We have one before you make staff sergeant, sergeant first class. We have one before you make E8 or master sergeant. And then, of course, you have the sergeant major academy where you're going to become a sergeant major. And that's the highest enlisted rank that you can hold, is command sergeant major. Um, so, it just, yeah, just different opportunities at different, um, yeah, just different opportunities like that is where I stepped forward and did certain things to get where I needed to go.
Yeah.
Um, and so I didn't take advantage of anyone not doing something they were supposed to do, or setting anybody up for failure. Like, I 90% or 99% of the time I was trying to help someone do something, um, and ended up getting put into the position over them because that person just wasn't doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there were a lot of learning curves that you kind of learned, I guess, in those times too. And a lot of times, just when we're talking about leadership styles and, the way that people kind of progress in their careers and, take on the ownership of being a leader, people think that it just comes really easy. There may be some pitfalls here and there, but more than often, there are a lot of pitfalls and a lot of things that we make mistakes on. We just, kind of drop the ball on. Talk to us a little bit about some of the things that you learned as you were becoming the leader in all of these different spaces. Some things that maybe you learned that were good, pros, cons. Yeah, just talk to us a little bit about that.
Oh yeah. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I learned quickly that good leaders can make it look very easy on the outside, but internally, on the inside or the other side of things, it's way more difficult. There's more that's going on. There's more that you have to be aware of, engaged in, and it takes a lot of work. And I learned that several different times um, throughout my career, where it's not. There was a lot of leaders that I saw that they saw leaders that they had been engaged with that did a lot of yelling. They did a lot of cussing people out. They
Hmm.
very forceful, aggressive, and other some toxic traits and stuff like that. And I learned that that's not it, number one. And then number two, it takes more than just going outside and yelling at someone or whatever else. There has to be a method to it. There has to be something behind the aggressiveness. So I could come out and just point my finger and say, "Hey, get this done, get it done now," whatever. Or I could come out and be forceful and say, "Hey, this is the task. These are the consequences of not completing that task. You're going to make the choice for yourself. I'm not going to force you to do it, but it needs to get done." So, different things like that. But I learned that very early on, just through um, different, instances. For one, the first time I came to, or not the first time, but when I first got to Hawaii, I came to a unit where the first sergeant in my company that I was assigned to, the sergeant major of our command sergeant major of our battalion, was riding him. He's riding him a little bit. I don't want to say he didn't have the confidence, but he just, at the time, that individual wasn't executing to the standard that the sergeant major wanted. And you have to do that. And so, here I come in. I'm a sergeant first class. I'm hard charging. I'm trying to be in a leadership position. My ultimate goal is to be a first sergeant. So, I'm out here taking charge in instances where it seems like no one is taking charge. And that's not to say that that particular first sergeant at the time wasn't doing that. Like I said, I just don't think it was being executed to the standard of what the sergeant major wanted. And
Right.
so I jumped in it and was like, okay, well, I'll get it done. I'll do it. And then I found out, later on that it was way more difficult than I thought. It's more difficult. As a first sergeant, you're in charge of everybody. If your company is 300 people strong, you're responsible for all 300 individuals. Yes, you have platoon sergeants and you have other leaders within your company and your platoons and stuff, but ultimately that is going to fall on you. And on the outside looking in, it's easy to jump in and say, "Hey, you got to do this, you got to do that." But on the inside, you also have to, account for everyone. You're responsible for, property and equipment and taking care of soldiers and ensuring that, everything is good to go for the commander. So that's just one particular instance that I was, and my sergeant major told me. He said he pulled me to the side one day. And he said, "Hey, you're not ready." He said, "You're not ready for this position." And I took that to heart. It hit me like a ton of bricks because I was trying to do the things that I thought a first sergeant was supposed to do, um, and I was only scratching the surface. And so I had to take a step back and really get into the leadership manuals, find out the reasoning behind doing certain things, um, because there is a reason for everything, and you can't just jump in and not know that, and then you find yourself being told by the sergeant major, "You're not ready. I'm going to put somebody else here."
Mhm.
So it's very humbling, to say the least.
Mhm. But you went into it with a different mindset to not be the type of leader that you had been seeing. You talked about the ones that were just really abrasive and all the things. So there was some learning that you had to make up, but you came into it with a mentality that was a little different than what you had been seeing. Why did you want to be different than what you had been seeing?
Well, that was, that kind of leads to one of my, I don't want to say mantras, but one of my sayings that I used to tell the soldiers that I would mentor, and even as a first sergeant, when I eventually became a first sergeant, um, I saw often that a lot of junior soldiers would complain, right? They complain about this, complain, and soldiers are going to complain, right? We're always going to complain because we don't know what's going on above us. We only know what's going on at our level. And so we are going to find something to complain about. Um, but as I progressed, one of the things that I passed down to junior leaders was, if you don't like what's going on, if you don't like what's happening, if you don't like the way things are being done, then do something about it. Number one, position yourself to affect change. You can't affect change just standing around complaining, right? Get into the manuals, find a mentor, find a coach, find a leader, somebody to emulate, to get information from, or whatever else, and ultimately you will find yourself in a position to affect change. When you get into that position to affect change, be the leader that you wish you had when you were in, a certain position. Don't go into that position and be the leader that you saw before, right? Be the one, when you were standing around complaining, and say, "Hey, I wish I had more information. I wish I knew what was going on. I wish I knew what time we are getting off." Be that leader that comes and briefs his or her soldiers and says, "Hey, this is what we have going on for today. If we can get these things done, this is what time potentially we can get out of here. This is what is expected of you. And then if you have questions, come and see me, come ask. Do not be intimidated or not be scared or whatever else. Come and say, "Hey, don't question me in a sense that, you're questioning what I'm doing, but come ask questions for clarity." And so those are the things that made me want to be a different leader. Was
Yeah.
that I saw the complaints and I saw the complaints and then I didn't see any feedback from the leadership. So it was like there was this disconnect where, you know, soldiers were complaining. Some of them were valid. A lot of them weren't, but they fell on deaf ears when it came to some of the leadership. And they were just, you know, they thought because they were in that leadership position, they could just yell and point and talk and say whatever they wanted to. And, nothing good came of it.
Hmm. Well, they had continued to pass down what they had been experiencing. They just kept that same mentality. So I think it speaks highly that, you could have easily done the same thing. You could
Yeah.
have passed on the same type of leadership experience that you had seen and been that type of leader to the people that, were looking up to you, but you didn't choose to go that route, which is, I think, incredibly impressive and very much something that a very impactful leader will do. And I love what you've shared about complaining, and that
Hmm.
just speaks to so many different things. It's not just in that world. I mean, it's the world just in general. There are so many people that complain, but don't take the actual steps of action to kind of do something about what they're complaining about. They just want to say it and do nothing
Hmm.
about it. But you challenge them to actually do something about the complaints that they were having. And I think that's extremely honorable as well. Very, very much an authentic leader style, I think.
Hmm.
Just curious, when you did change your, you know, uh, leadership, well, when you made that leadership style kind of your style, did you see the change in the people who were reporting to you? Like, was there a different approach? You mentioned that you wanted them to come to you and to not be intimidated, but did they do it and was it productive?
Yeah, I saw, I definitely saw a change when I took over my first company as a first sergeant. Um, you know, I am very by the book, but I'm also very fair.
Hmm.
And so when I initially talked to the soldiers in my company, I told them, I say, hey, look, I'm not going to be one of those first sergeants that's running around here yelling and screaming and making you do, crazy things just out of the blue because I can. My goal is to accomplish the company's mission, is to accomplish whatever the commander's goals are for the day, and we're going to get it done. Um, my mom, I stole a saying from my mom. I don't think she actually said it, but I just say that my mom said it because it sounds better that way. But my mom used to tell me, "You catch more flies with honey than you do vinegar."
Right.
So I so with that thought process in mind, you know, I don't want to say easygoing, but I was approachable.
Yeah.
Most people would say I didn't look approachable just because of the way my face looked, especially the way I wore my headgear. You'll probably see in a couple of the pictures that I sent, but I was approachable, and I found that soldiers will do almost anything for you with the right motivation. If they feel like they're respected and they want to do it for you. And that's not to say that you have to go out and coddle soldiers or even, your employees or whatever else. There is
Of
a
course.
level of expectation of things that need to get done and that they are tasked to do, and they're hired to do those things. But in the way you approach getting that ask, it makes a world of difference. I had soldiers that were eager to go get things done because they knew that First Sergeant Sorrells is not going to waste their time. You know what I'm saying? First Sergeant Sorrells is not going to keep them there all night to work or do whatever when it's not necessary. And if they had an issue, um, First Sergeant Sorrells isn't going to treat them like they're just a soldier. He's going to understand that they are human beings, they are people, they have lives, they have families, and that there are going to be cases, there are going to be times where we have to take care of the individual soldier first, so that way they are mentally there, and able to execute what needs to be done. If they're worried about home, worried about, their kids or whatever other things outside of work or outside of, the unit, they're not going to be focused on getting the mission accomplished. And ultimately, the goal is to get the mission accomplished. So if that means I have to, if a soldier says, "Hey, I have a last minute appointment that I need to take care of because my kid is sick or whatever," then I'm gonna be like, "Okay, hey, get that knocked out. Go get with your platoon sergeant or your squad leader or whoever. You know, let them know what the appointment is, work that out or whatever else, get it taken care of, and then get back here so we can get back to work." And then, there's no issues. So I had heard a lot of feedback when I took over that, those type of things weren't done. We had people that had daycare issues, and they had autistic or kids on the spectrum and stuff like that, and they needed extra attention,
Right.
and just life just happens even
Yes.
while you're in the military, and a lot of times that they weren't being taken care of. So, that's one of the things that I saw a shift in when I took over. The soldiers knew what I expected, right? Because I was trying to be the epitome of what the regulation says a soldier is supposed to look like and what a leader is supposed to be. And this is your example, follow it, you know. So I'm not going to just let you run amok and do everything. I'm going to take care of you, but I expect that you accomplish your duties to the highest standard.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just a really big combination of just like having a uh, sense of care and concern for your people,
Mhm.
realizing that, when you show that to your people, and to kind of what you said, when you show that you care and are concerned about your people, they will work for you. They
Mhm.
will form, they will do all that they need to do because you've shown that you aren't just looking at them as just a soldier. You're looking at them as a human, which is
Yeah.
important. People want to be seen. It seems like that's what you did.
Yeah, absolutely. They'll go the extra mile. They'll
Mhm.
do that
Yeah.
extra little piece to make it that much better. And then the reward. That I don't tell them. I didn't tell them like, "Hey, if you do this, you'll get this." You
Right.
know, because then it's going to be that. So if we're not going to get anything, then I'm not going to do it.
Right.
It's hey, you did a great job. You performed. Matter of fact, you did extra. You know, I've noticed that you've done that a few times. I tell you what, go ahead and take the rest of the day off. I'll cover it with the commander. I'll cover it with your platoon sergeant. But you've really been putting in that work. Go ahead and take the day. You know,
Yeah.
and so little things like that, just drive them to push forward. And sometimes I withheld that little piece of, you can have this, you can have that, just so that they know that, hey, yes, you did an excellent job, you did great, but just a reminder, that's your job. You're supposed to do it. You
Right.
can't be always rewarded for doing what you're
Doing your
supposed to
job.
do. Yeah.
Right.
So, like you said, there's a mix, there's a balance there. But ultimately, when your soldiers appreciate what you do for them, they will end up taking care of you.
Absolutely. Did you ever have any soldiers that came back and really gave you good feedback, or just, gave you your flowers on how you were as a leader?
It's funny you said that. In the moment, they did not. Well, they did kind of. They appreciated, what I did and how I did it and whatever else, and thanked me for being a better leader, a better version of a leader that they've seen.
Yeah.
No real accolades, but just thank you for Sarn, for just being how you are.
Right.
Uh, but in probably like I say the last year, I've had a few different soldiers that hit me up. They found me on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and said like, "Hey, first one, I just wanted to thank you for all that you did when I was in your company or when I was in your unit, uh, because it really pushed me, it really motivated me, and drove me to do other things. And I wasn't expecting that. I never, I wasn't looking for it. I'm not gonna say well, I didn't want it. Like it was, I wasn't sitting around waiting like who's gonna say thank you. It was just like, hey, I did my job, and hopefully, if I impacted at least one individual and inspired them to do something, then I did what I was supposed to do. But
Absolutely.
I've had a few that actually hit me up and just out of the blue is like, hey, I just want to say thank you, like, and they some of them, a few of them actually are first sergeants now, or they progressed in the military or still in the military and having progressed. So it's like I said, if I affected one, that's great. If
Yeah.
I affected more, that's even better. And hopefully they took what I, tried to be an example of and apply that to themselves and then to their subordinates as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I think a lot of people, need to hear those perspectives because I think the leaders that we kind of perceive in the army or in the military are kind of the ones that we see on TV or in the movies, kind of, what you kind of shared. So to hear your take on your leadership style, I think that's really refreshing to hear that there are different sides to leaders and doing the work that's necessary. So that's really cool that you had that mentality and that you just shared that. So I appreciate that. So you mentioned you're in Hawaii. Talk to us a little bit about how you got there, what you're currently doing, and how that's been going for you.
Yeah, so I spent about 6 years total as an active duty soldier in Hawaii. I first came here in 2011. I wanted to retire here or retire from here, but Big Army said, "Hey, no, we're short E8s at Fort Hood, so we need you to go there." And I said, "Are you sure? Because I feel like Fort Hood is the largest military installation that we have. I'm sure we have plenty of E8s out there." Nope, need you to go. So I get to Fort Hood, and of course, they're not short E8s. So, I didn't necessarily have a job when I got to Fort Hood. So I took a non-leadership position. I was still an E8, but I took off the rank of first sergeant and put on, master sergeant. And I was only doing that for about, I'll say, a month before my battalion sergeant major said, "Hey, I got a guy that's getting ready to retire and I need a first sergeant." And I was just like, "Yeah, no, I'm good. I did that. I checked the block on that. I'm straight. I've got, a little bit over 20 years already. I'm probably going to start winding down." And she was like, "No, I really, really need you to, take this company." So I um, did that for probably about 2.5 years, deployed to Poland, came back. I dropped my retirement paperwork while I was in Poland, came back, started the process. While I was in the process, the retirement process, the uh, military or the army started a pilot program. Um, I can't think of the name of it right now, but basically, it was for transitioning soldiers, retiring soldiers, and they get the opportunity to get a training certificate or do an internship for a position to work for a company or an organization once they get out or retire. So I did that. I did that, and I did the program that was called the War TAC program, and it's for the VA. So essentially, it was for me to be able to work on veterans' claims. So veterans, they file claims for disability compensation and other things, whatever else. And there are claims processors. They're called veteran service representatives or VSRs, but the short term is they're a claim processor. And so I was training to do that. So to review their medical documents, all their treatment records from in service, et cetera, et cetera. And then hopefully push it forward so they can get disability compensation from the government. And then COVID happened. So I was a week out from completing the training. COVID kicked in, and the VA pulled all the money back for jobs that we were supposed to get when we graduated the program to put up protection measures for the current employees. So I was uh, a week out, like I said, a week out from completing the training, and essentially had no job for when I got out when I retired. So that threw a monkey wrench into things. But my girlfriend at the time, my wife, she knew someone back here in Hawaii and made a call to see if there was any openings. And the current position I'm in now, they needed someone that had some type of VA experience, I was freshly trained. I had a brand new certificate. So I took the position and came back to Hawaii, and started working for the VA in the public contact section. So I'm not doing what I trained to do while I was transitioning out, but it's still the knowledge from that helped me in the position that I am now. So that's how I ended up back here in Hawaii. So I've been here 6 years as a civilian, and it's been great.
Okay. So talk to us a little bit about the work that you do and how has it been going for you?
So yeah, like I said, I work for the VA. I work for the Veterans Benefits Administration. So the Department of Veterans Affairs has three administrations. The Health Administration, they get the majority of the money because they cover health care and all these different things. Then we have the Benefits Administration, where I'm at. We help veterans with all their benefits that they're entitled to. So disability compensation, education benefits, home loan guarantee programs, life insurance, employment services, stuff like that. All of that comes through us. And then
Hmm.
you have the cemetery administration, which covers the cemetery. So like Arlington, state cemeteries, national cemeteries throughout the United States. So I work in the public contact section for the VBA, for the Honolulu regional office. So essentially, we're the first stop anytime a veteran comes in, whether they're just retiring, or they've been out for a while and they've never filed a claim, or whatever the case may be. We're the first people that they come to see. So we basically have to have a general knowledge of a lot of different things, or a lot of different aspects of the VA, because they're going to have those questions, and we have to be able to point them in the right direction, for where they need to go. So we essentially we help them with their applications, advise them on what they need to do, guide them on how to do it, et cetera, and get them started in the process of getting the benefits that they deserve.
Hmm. It sounds like, you were perfectly suited for that because it seems like you have, a lot of knowledge that would be very essential to what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. It's kind of what
Oh
I'm
yeah,
hearing.
yeah, no, absolutely. Having my military knowledge, and
Mhm.
having served for so long, I'm able to help veterans kind of figure out how the injuries or illnesses that they suffer from, whether they're recent because they just got out, or they've had them for a while because they've been out for years, how those things connect to their service, or how the VA can consider them connected to their service. Ultimately, we have to have the evidence and diagnosis and all these different things in order for the VA to grant compensation or whatever else. But I'm also able to tell the veteran, like, hey, you did this job in the army, right? So, maybe your back issues are coming from having done this, and this. And they're like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. Like, yeah, because it's not just, sometimes people think that they have to have a very severe injury or a missing limb, whatever the case may be, in order to file a claim. And
Right.
that's not the case. As veterans, or as service members, our bodies age twice as fast as our civilian counterparts, right? So you'll have a 40-year-old with the back of an 80-year-old because of all the things that they did in service. And
Yeah.
people don't realize that starts at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and goes all the way till 5 o'clock in the afternoon or beyond. And you do that 5 to 6 days a week. You do it, you know, all week long, you know what I'm saying? Just for years at a time. And that does a lot of damage to your body. So something just as simple as doing PT every day and doing push-ups and running is killing your shoulders and your chest and your knees and your back and all these different things. And that's just from doing PT. Um,
Wow.
so if you're talking about doing things, for your specific job, that's a whole other window of opportunity to be granted service connection.
Hmm. Wow. And I'm also hearing a connection to what we talked about probably at the start of the conversation. You were wanting to kind of go into a helping field.
Mhm.
And I feel like you've done that all throughout your career. Like you still were doing something that you wanted to do originally, but it wasn't packaged probably the way that you probably see it. I'm seeing you helping and having that care and concern for people in different facets of your career. And you've been able to kind of really use that in extraordinary ways. I'm not sure if you've ever noticed that, but I'm noticing that in our conversation. I don't know if you looked at it like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't look
Yeah,
at myself in a certain way or whatever else.
I get it.
I just try to do what needs to be done.
Right.
But no, you're right. I mean, I once I got out, once I retired, I started going to school. I tried to do it when I was in service, but I was, I didn't have really the support to take classes and go to college while I was in service, and so ultimately I put it on the back burner until I retired. And then my spouse now, she was really instrumental in supporting me in starting to go to school. And so, 2020, I got started. 4 years later, I have my bachelor's in psychology. And
Hmm.
then right now, I'm working on my master's in psychology and counseling. You know, whenever I'm in my classes or anything like that, and we're discussing, the instructor says, "Hey, let's introduce ourselves, et cetera, et cetera. What track are you on as far as counseling track or mental health track?" And I tell them that mine is counseling, mental health counseling, but my focus is really on veterans because a lot of veterans just they don't have. I don't know if advocate is the right word, but a lot
I think
of
that fits.
yeah, a lot of therapists,
Hmm.
they're focused on what the book says, and they're focused on regular everyday trauma and stuff like that. There's no one that has the experience, the military experience, that can identify with veterans, and what they do and what they've been through. And so a lot of times when I'm sitting here and I'm talking to different veterans about certain things that they should be claiming and stuff like that, I can use my military experience to guide them, and then I can also use the knowledge that I have with my psychology degree when it comes to talking about PTSD and mental health claims and stuff like that. Because a lot of them, they want to file for PTSD or they want to go see a therapist to try to get help or talk to someone, but they feel like the therapist just doesn't really get it. Because a lot of times in therapy, depending on which type of therapy you're practicing or using, you know, they try to go back to the veteran's childhood, or their relationships, whatever else. And a lot of times the veteran is just like, look, um, my dad hugged me enough. My mom told me that she loved me. I'm fine in that aspect. I'm here because I got blown up 3 times, in 3 different locations, and I'm having trouble sleeping. I have trouble when the fireworks go off, and they do fireworks big here in Hawaii. So they don't feel like they can talk to their therapist because the therapist just doesn't really get it. And that's not to say the therapist isn't good because there's some great ones, but sometimes I think they feel like they want to talk to someone who can really understand where they're coming from.
Hmm.
And so when I have them in my office, we're able to discuss things like that. And there's been a few times where, they come in my office and they're here for one thing and it ends up turning into a therapy session.
Yeah.
Just because they feel like they can talk to me about certain things. And ultimately I encourage them to go over to the mental health section and talk to someone, sign up, and because mental health through the VA is free for veterans. And that's ultimately where I encourage them to go. But I tell them, hey, look, if you just need to talk, if you're having a day and you're just struggling, just you don't even need an appointment. Just sign into the office as a walk-in, put down that you want to see Terry, and I'll come out and get you and bring you in, and we'll just talk for a minute.
Hmm.
So,
That's going to be such a huge benefit to your community to have your um, expertise and your knowledge of what these veterans are experiencing. And I know that there's going to be a lot of success stories coming from your impact with that. So my head goes off to you
so
for wanting to follow through on all of those degrees, wanting to finish school, starting the program, and focusing on veterans with your mental health background. That's going to be an amazing thing. So when you are complete with it, are there goals to be, well, what are, let me not put words in your mouth. What are some other goals that you have at that point?
I'm not 100% sure yet. I I don't know if like I want to have go into. I don't know. I don't know 100% sure exactly what I want to
Okay.
do with it.
Okay.
I just know that I want to continue to provide a service for veterans and help them, whether it's with their benefits or mentally with mental health, counseling, whatever case may be,
Yeah.
be a life coach in some aspect. I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't see a doctor attached to my name anytime in the
Yeah,
near
that's where I was
future.
going, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to just throw it, but it's definitely going to be doctor. I don't know
Yeah.
why you're
No,
not.
I
No,
don't know. Like I said, I'm an old man, man. I'm 50.
you're
It's a
not. That's
struggle
not.
now.
It's not going to do that. No, it's not going to do that. No, it's
It
not
is
at
a
all.
struggle now, but yeah,
There
we'll
was
see.
there was someone that just got their PhD at the age of 70.
Yeah.
So I think they're a little older than you. So I think there's some room to get there. And I'm sure with some nudging you'll get to that point. So I think
Yeah.
I think I think there's a bright future for you, if I'm just being honest with you.
No, I appreciate that. Like I said, I can't say it's out of the realm of possibility. I just, right now I'm just focused on the
Right.
masters, and it's kicking my butt a little bit. But um, you know, I'll
Yeah.
get to it eventually. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
One last question for you. What is one word that personifies who you are?
That's a good one. Um, I would have to say motivated.
Yeah.
I would have to say motivated. I can drudge up the motivation from the depths of my soul to get something done, to get things done, or to to do whatever, right? I think motivation, motivation, discipline, there's all these things that all they all kind of tie in together. um, but I find that even when I'm trying to be disciplined, I have to find the motivation to just start the process of creating new habits to be disciplined. So I would have to say motivated is the word I would use.
I think that's a great word. I think that's a great word. Mr. Soon to be Dr. Sorrells, we thank you so very much for joining today and just sharing your nuggets. And I know that a lot of people watching, especially in the military community, are going to glean a lot of information from your leadership and just the things that you're doing. So I know that there's definitely a lot more headed your way. So thank you so very much for joining us today. Um, Tell us something that you are grateful for today.
Um, I would have to say I'm just grateful for the opportunities that I've had, right? Um, no matter how those opportunities came about, or ultimately the outcome of those opportunities, I'm still grateful for just having the opportunities. I'm grateful for being able to continue to serve military service members as veterans. And ultimately, I'm grateful for my family because they
Mhm.
have supported me or been supporting me. Um, and, you can't do it without support. It's just that simple. You think you can. I'm one of those guys that thinks I can get it done, and I don't need any help. I can make it happen. But the truth is that ultimately you're going to need help.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, those are
so
the things
true.
that I'm grateful for.
Yeah. If I had to choose something today, I would say that I am grateful for second chances.
Yeah.
I think we all get into a mentality of thinking that, like, once you try something that's like, nah, that's it. But it's like, nah, there's so much more life that gives us second opportunities. I mean, if you think about it, waking up every day is another
Mhm.
opportunity to get something right that you didn't get right before. So I'm grateful for just second opportunities. So that's what I'm going for today. I'm going with that.
Absolutely.
Well, for everybody watching, please make sure that you are going to my YouTube page. You can watch this episode and other episodes as well. Subscribe and like and share. I just want you guys to just share the good information that's being put into these episodes. So definitely do that. I want you guys to tune in again for our next show. We're going to have another amazing show, another amazing guest. So have a great day and have a great week.